And if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself, feel free to do that in the chat. My name is Terri Maxwell, and I'm going to be the host for today's session. The session is brought to you by ShiftCo. Many of you that are on this webinar are already ShiftCo members. Some of you are not. At the end, I'll tell you a little bit about ShiftCo, but this is one of the methodologies that we use with our members. And there's two distinct periods when what we call turning point really kicks in. So how I figured that out is really a lot of failure. My purpose is to inspire potential. And I sold a very successful business in early 2008 and had this brilliant idea to start a purposeful Shark Tank. And that portfolio of business is now called Share on Purpose. And we do two things. We cultivate business ideas. ShiftCo is one of those ideas. And then we invest in a speculator fund in conscious businesses in three different areas. We basically take profits from the cultivator and invest in the speculator. The really unique thing of all that failure, particularly the first 6 years of the 12 years I've been doing it, was mostly failure the first 6 years. But I uncovered what is now called the Conscious Business Growth Platform, which is what ShiftCo is based on. And it's the fact that there are different things that you have to do at each of these different phases. You're going to see an example of that when we talk about the business personas and how they shape your business, particularly in launch and shape. They show up again in build and evolve, as you'll hear a couple of the members talk through today. ShiftCo is our fifth launched brand, and you know, we're excited. All of the brands are at different phases, but ShiftCo is really a culmination of over a decade of research on how do you grow a conscious business, which I want to jump right into. The first thing a lot of conscious entrepreneurs struggle with, that most of you I'm sure are past this, but I certainly struggled with it, is balancing the desire to have an impact with how do you generate profit, and how do you do sales and marketing, and how do you make that more authentic. So one of the pieces that is in the Conscious Business Growth Platform is balancing this, what I call the living in the becoming financially free from our businesses, but also making a difference. And what we uncovered in our research is what we call FD squared, that to get a business to where you can be financially free, there's three things that you have to master. And the emphasis is mastery, that you can't sort of kind of get it. You really have to master. And FD squared stands for fit, differentiation, and demand. And one of our speakers today will be talking a little bit about that. Josh, who's from New York, will kind of share a little bit about his insights. You notice that differentiation is really big, and it's really big because it really matters a lot. And what differentiation is being different in a way that matters to your buyer. And the real ingenious part of the differentiation methodology that we teach our members so that they can master that is how to attract the buyer that you want. So you never feel like you're selling, you never feel like you're pitching, and you never have to quote unquote market. It's really differentiation that does that. Demand generation is just about brand awareness and how more people become aware. But the real secret in FD squared, and the real heart of that, is differentiation. And as part of these phases, in the research that I've done over the last 10 years about conscious entrepreneurs, there's actually three different personas. The first persona is not a great name, but it is an accurate name, is a doer. And doers make great solopreneurs. They really, the work itself motivates them, and they like familiar structures. And we have whole pathways dedicated to, particularly now with COVID, a lot of people making the transition where the work is really what they're about, and they just need it to be a little more predictable and a little more consistent. I'll talk a little bit more about each of these in a second. The second persona is a solver, and you're going to hear from two solvers today who made different choices in their businesses in this, what we call turning point, for different reasons. And a solver, solving the problems are really the motivation. And what a solver is really after, it's not so much the work, it's really the solving the problems. But solvers like the freedom of entrepreneurship. They don't like to be told what to do. They don't like to be restricted. And with solvers, they're very adept, both in their own business and with their clients, at solving problems. And it's a real gift that they have. The third persona is a builder, and builders are motivated by building things. The things can solve problems, but the motivation is building it and then seeing it built and then doing something else. And that's almost the good news and the bad news for builders. I'm a builder, obviously, and I love to build things. And if I do the same thing twice, I get very frustrated and very bored very quickly. Builders can be their worst enemy, as I have been, where they try to do it too fast and they don't really get the thing initially that they've built profitable and scaling before they move on to the next thing. And so with builders, we have different strategies in this scenario for how we help them navigate the various pathways. I'll talk a little bit more about each of these, but there is an assessment if you want to take it while I'm going through the personas a little bit more deeply, and then we'll talk about turning point. If you visit ShiftCo.global, go to the How You Grow page. Under the first bullet, you'll see an assessment that you can take, and it's very quick. You can answer a few questions and it'll let you know which persona is statistically the persona that is yours based on the research. Starting first with Doer, and by the way, I developed this methodology through my first concept, which is Succeed on Purpose. A lot of the conscious business growth platform came out of that business. And for doers, they focus on what is. They're very much in the present. They don't really like a lot of risk, but the key thing is their motivation. They very much are motivated by doing work. Whereas solvers, if it becomes too mundane, or certainly builders, they get frustrated. With doers, it's the work is really the joy. I love to do it. I love to get those things done and cross it off. And although building a business is a little bit harder for a doer than it is a solver and a builder, it comes a little more naturally to them. Doers make really great entrepreneurs as long as they can get it more predictable and they can focus more on the work and get the part about that's hard is the figuring out the business, get that out of the way. We have several members that are doers that have navigated the pathways quite nicely once they get past those initial hurdles that doers struggle with. And again, the key is they enjoy the work itself. Again, solvers, totally different, night and day. And solvers, it's the freedom is really the motivation. They focus on what could be, so they're always making things better. The problems they like to solve can be people problems, business problems. They're kind of problems hunters. Like, they get their blood flowing, like, oh, there's a problem I can solve. But they really like the freedom. And if they have a client base that's very restrictive, they get frustrated. It's one of the reasons why they don't make great employees, because they're motivated by freedom. But solvers, the way that you scale with a solver is very different than the way that you scale with a builder. And so we have different methods for both of these personas. And then there's builders. A lot of entrepreneurs are builders. Builders, it's really about seeing it built and then doing something else. And that's the good news and the bad news is they never fully, and I shouldn't say never, our tendency, because I am one, is to try to do it too fast because we're bored with the building and we're bored with the doing and the solving, and we want to build the next thing. So we move too quickly and we don't really get the right scalability infrastructure in place because we're motivated by the next thing, the next idea. And with builders, again, slightly different strategies that we'll talk about in a minute. So those are the three personas. And then what we typically do with our members is work with them on these different paths, and we relate it to their careers, because these same personas showed up in their careers as well. And you remember when you worked for that company and you experienced this? Well, here's how that relates to being in business for yourself. And we frequently ask the question, is the joy in the freedom to solve, or is the joy in the building? Because you'll always follow your joy. And if you get kind of buried down in the doing, as an example, if you're a builder, then you just don't want to do anymore. And then you just want to start the next thing because the doing is getting in the way. So how do you navigate that? That's what we're going to be talking about today. And I want to bring our first member guest speaker. Josh is one of these people that when you meet him, he just lights up. And the moment he joined, which I think was March of last year, I could just tell he had something special. And Josh is a solver in a lot of the both upsides of being a solver, and the constraints really showed up. So Josh, welcome to the webinar. You want to share a little bit about how solving problems can get in the way of growing your business and why it's important to focus, as well as what you learned about FD squared. Josh?
Thank you, Terry. And hello, everyone. My name is Josh Tan. Happy to be here. I'm a life coach. And as Terry said, I'm definitely a solver. I definitely fit the profile of wanting freedom and being really adept at solving problems, but not fitting in well at work and on teams. And this whole like solver mentality has really been a pain in my side, because lately, with like the FD squared model, fit, differentiation, and demand, having to plan out the business, or at least get some kind of business model together and start a path that doesn't exist, had me spinning in a loop of how do I solve this problem where I don't know all the variables. And I got stuck in a lot of like, what if thinking, what if this is wrong? What if I get it wrong? What if I speak to the wrong people and get the wrong clients? What if it doesn't work? And that was a lot of honestly wasted energy and time, just constantly like wondering how to solve the problem rather than working on the problem. And it's kind of crazy, because it's not like you sit around and you think all day, but you do work and you make action steps, and you wonder why you're not going anywhere, because you might be taking the wrong actions, or you might be too stuck on trying to solve the problem rather than getting real-time feedback. So that was something I've been dealing with lately. That showed up as a constraint of the solver. On the upside, I love solving problems. I love helping people. When I connect with someone, I can really understand who they are. So goods and bads with it, for sure. For FD squared, fit, differentiation, and demand, what I've learned about that is fit is really important, something that fits you. Um, with the whole solver thing as well, I'm trying to fit into something bigger. Like I want to grow into something bigger, and I'm trying to fit into that bigger place from square one, which was really difficult. So fitting in to where you are at the moment is really important. Like start with what you have. Definitely challenge yourself, but also start with what you have. Differentiation is also something I'm learning about and learning to master now, which is something I never really thought about. And it's really interesting how ShiftCo developed that model and teaches it to entrepreneurs. Something completely different, completely unique, definitely useful. How to differentiate yourself in a market, especially when there's a lot of coaches out there, a lot of entrepreneurs out there, consultants. So learning how to get market data and learning how to speak to your market in a way that differentiates you rather than just using market lingo, super powerful stuff. So definitely really helpful to know like these personas and the constraints and the upsides, and as well as the model of how to grow your business.
And Josh, I want to just ask you a question, because one of the things that solvers struggle with is they have a big vision. So it's not that they have any less of a vision than a builder, but the way that they get there is very different. And it's almost sometimes like the vision is a little overwhelming, and that it's like they can't always see the path to get there. So how have you navigated your ability to focus on the impact that you're making with solving as you're moving towards that bigger vision that you have?
I think the focus is the key word there. Trying to focus on what's going right than what's going wrong has been really helpful. focusing on potential rather than problems. Like, of course, everything is going to be a challenge. And I've started to ask myself, what if it all works out? What if it all works out? What if it's actually perfect the way it is? And that's been really helpful. I see Michelle really getting along with that. Just like, what if it all works out? Like, then I don't need to worry about it. And I think that focus, that change in perception has been really helpful.
Awesome. Well, you're a really special guy, and really glad that you joined our community last year. And I feel like you're on the cusp of that giant leap forward in your business, and it's exciting to watch you grow. I want to pivot just a second and talk about the difference between impact and if you're part of conscious capitalism or B Corp. I know you're familiar with this book, so I'm not going to bore you with the idea behind this. But I want to link together the difference between growth versus impact. And this is where I believe conscious businesses really differ. Is the growth is to make an impact. It's not growth for the sake of growth. We wrote a blog recently called Conscious Business is the Cure, and it's on the ShiftCo.global website. You might want to read that, because our research has shown that conscious businesses make very different business decisions because of the desire for impact. And quite honestly, as a builder, this was my biggest mistake. I had really come from the entrepreneurial, grow it, take it public world, and then grow my own company and sell it, and take that money, and what am I going to do next? And I'd really come from that. And even though I was now awake and quote unquote conscious and purposeful, I still was beholden to a lot of those old bad habits. And that was really what created, the struggle for me the first half of my decade or so journey in this piece. And it really was very frustrating to me, because I wanted to have the impact, but my desire for growth as a builder, how many businesses can I launch? How quick can I get them up? I made so many mistakes because I took my eye off the ball, and builders in particular have to be careful with that, which we'll talk about in a minute. So what's the difference? Well, growth versus impact. When an entrepreneur who's focused on growth is thinking about their business, they're saying, will somebody buy my product? And how do I get them to buy my product? A conscious entrepreneur really focuses, whether they're a builder or a solver, on, wait a minute, will this solve a problem? And they won't launch the business unless it solves a problem. What we help our members do with differentiation is show you how to bring your passion for solving their problem to the forefront and speak to the buyer about that in a way that connects with the buyer and shows them the problem that you solve. The second thing is on pricing. An entrepreneur, well, so what will someone pay? How much can I charge? And again, I came from this world. I was ingrained, several decades of growing companies, taking one public, growing companies, selling them. This was how I thought is, what will someone pay? A conscious entrepreneur says, how much is it worth? It's really about value. And then with success, entrepreneurs, myself included, how much money can I make? A conscious entrepreneur says, can I make a difference as I'm making money? So that's when we talk about growth versus impact. That's what we're talking about. And I want to bring another one of our members up. One of our initial investors connected us, and I just knew she had the jam out of the gate. And very quickly, she's already built a very successful business on her own as a solver. And so when we first were working together, I said, hey, Tanya, it looks like you're a solver. Is this the kind of things you're experiencing? And she's like, yeah, that's exactly it. So Tanya, why don't you share a little bit about how you can still build $1 million business? You're just going to do it differently. And what are some of the lessons that you have as a solver building a very scalable business?
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to be here today. And this, I'm listening to Terri, and this definitely is speaking to me and reflecting what I've gone through as a business owner. So I started this company 7 years ago, really without the idea that it would grow into a company. I just wanted to be a sole proprietor, consultant, where I was able to just have enough work to stay busy and pay my bills and do work that I loved and enjoyed. And what I found is that over the last 7 years, I had natural growth milestones. So points of time where either I had to figure out how to adapt because it was growing so quickly, or just growing to the point where the current structure wasn't sustainable to maintain that growth. So I had to decide, either I adapted or stagnated and just decided that it was just gonna, I was gonna have to start turning down business. And so I think the problem solver mentality really speaks to me, because I really did enjoy figuring out how to adapt to each of those stages. But what I realized in starting to work with Terri is that what I had been doing all along is I was reacting. So I was being very reactive every time I got to one of those growth milestones. That's when I would start to adapt. One of those growth milestones was hiring employees. So now, 7 years later, we have 5 employees. I'm getting ready to hire the 6th one here in the next couple of months. And the growth has happened really quickly, much more quickly than I had anticipated. And I think, in working with Terri, as we talked about how I could scale not reactively, but to think through that and do that intentionally, and to have a plan for how we were going to grow to the next level. And what I realized is that working with Terri is that really our focus was scaling for impact. And that became really important for me, because I've seen a lot of consultancies grow big and fast and then implode because they didn't have the structure to support that or to sustain that. And so for me, what was really important is to create a plan of how we were going to implement standards of practice across employees, so that everybody was really living the brand, that any client coming to our company, regardless of who they were going to work with, would have the same experience, the same quality of service. So for me, it was really, I love the growth. That's exciting for me, but that's not what drives me. What really drives me is the fact that we could have a greater impact. And so, for me, I was a little nervous about the growth. And I think Terri could kind of see that in our conversations early on, where I was like, I'm excited, but I don't want to grow if we're not going to do it right. And if the quality of service or product suffers, then I really don't want to grow. So Terri really helped me figure out is, how do we create a structure where that growth maintains our impact? And so that really had a lot to do around creating a plan of action that we've just now started implementing, where we're implementing standards of practice. We're implementing, training around that. And so we're going to create a structure where we can continue to grow. And, right now we had 33 new clients last year. Our goal is 40 this year. We've already signed 6 new clients in January. Like I said, we're hiring new employees, and we'll end up hitting $1 million. We're projected to hit $1 million for the first time this year. So, and it's exciting. Like I said, I get a little nervous about it because, again, if quality of service suffers, then I've not achieved growth to the level of excellence that I want.
And talk a little bit about the expectations framework to create that quality of service, because that is, in a services business, whether there's technology combined with it, say a SaaS model, or it's just straight delivery of service. Mm-hmm. The people aspect of it is really what hinders scalability. So talk a little bit about implementing that, the culture change, how you navigated the culture change, but how now you've got proper expectations set in place to navigate that growth.
Yeah, I think that's the real key piece. And until I had this kind of planned out, it was hard for me to see how we could scale for impact. So the first part was implementing accountability measures and accountability structure for all the employees. So that's accountability tools. And it's also just being clear about expectations, being clear. And I think the work that we did through differentiation and, what is our brand? Who are we? What makes us different? I think was really important in developing what are our values as a company? What is that brand that we want to live? What are our standards of excellence? And so having those defined, having accountability measures in place. And then I think one of the greatest things that Terri helped me do too is creating a career matrix. So every month when I have conversations with my employees about where they're at on their growth plan within the company and whether or not they're meeting expectations, I have actually an Excel spreadsheet that outlines very specific milestones and skills that they need to accomplish or that they need to be mastering at every level of advancement through the company, even the basic level. So, if you're to cut it as an employee or to be successful here as an employee, these are the basic milestones and skills that you have to have mastered. And so just even having that, where it takes a lot of the subjective nature of performance evaluation away and makes it really clear to employees where they're at and where they need to be, and we can have conversations around that. I think it's just a game changer. That's really been what's helped us create some uniformity and clear expectations across the team.
Yeah, and if a company's scaling for impact and they're truly adding team members, that scalability framework, what it does is it gets your people involved in their own growth. Like if we tell ourselves the truth, they're committed to our customers, they're committed to helping us grow. But as a CEO of a company, my job is to grow my people who then grow the company. Well, how do you do that? Well, the career matrix is the key because it empowers them to take control of their career, and they grow as fast as the organization grows, as long as they're delivering against those expectations. And it's mutually aligns our goals, and it puts the concept of performance in another light. So, and you've done a phenomenal job implementing it, Tanya. Phenomenal job implementing, and it's exciting to see what's happening with WISE resource development. One other thing to share, and then we'll ask and open it up for some questions, is the benefits of scaling for impact is the work is going to be more quality. Again, I failed a lot to say, as a builder, you really do have to slow down. It's also a lot more fun. Each of us, I think, that becomes a conscious entrepreneur, we have a little bit of the Atlas syndrome, where we really do want to save the world. And that's part of why we're attracted to conscious business. And unfortunately, we can take way too much on our plate. And the key is it needs to be fun. And that's why the fit aspects matter so much, that if you're a builder, we make these modifications in your business so it's more fun. If you're a solver, we make those modifications in your business so it's more fun. And you add in the quality and the fun, and that's truly how you scale and make that impact and make a difference. It's also why differentiation really matters. We have another webinar in early March on our differentiation methodology. Love for you guys to check that out. I have one other person that I wanted to have her speak as well. It's a different scenario. So Carla is a builder and she loves to build, and that is so motivating to her. At the same time, she knows her why, and she knows that balance is really important to her. And so she had to make adjustments different than Tanya. She had to make adjustments so that she could scale, but still honor the balance, even though she had that desire to build. So Carla, take it away. Carla?
I'm here. I was on mute. Hi, everyone. Excited to be here. Yes, Terri, you're totally right. And that desire for something different really came from being like I say, I'm a recovering workaholic, but for so many years of my life, I was checking the boxes and checking the boxes and checking the boxes and waiting for life to arrive or suddenly feel fulfilled or really successful. And what I finally admitted to myself is that while everything looked good on paper, I was empty inside. And so that was a huge pivot point in my life where I really started to look at everything and doing everything different. I knew in my heart there had to be a better way, a different way to do life and to do business. And so that's where all of that desire for something different started. And for so many years, work ran me. And so the way I do differently today is really taking the helm to intentionally choose the role that work is going to play in my life. And I think that for me, what keeps me grounded, Terri, you talked about, builders wanting to have vision, but those bigger visions for me and those bigger commitments are my compass no matter what I'm doing. So anything that I'm adding or taking on in my business, I'm really making sure there's alignment with those larger commitments. And I never had the vision or dream to build something really big. I've always wanted to build a small, remarkable business that has really deep impact, but that also fuels a lifestyle that is spacious and flexible, and that where I can honor these other commitments to being a mom and a wife and having a family and taking really good care of myself on the inside. So I filter everything through those larger commitments to look at what I want to take on.
And talk a little bit about some of the changes and the things we've talked about as a builder, where you want to build something. And that at the same time, we're thinking more product extensions for your business. Talk a little bit more about how we're still feeding the need to build, but still making sure we focus on that remarkable business that also gives us balance.
Yeah, I loved how you said the other day, Terri, you said, you got to psych out the builder. Like, you got to make sure the builder knows that it's going to get to do what it loves. And for me, for a lot of years, I was just creating, and I was creating so broadly. And so I think one of the huge impacts that ShiftCo has had, and Terri's support, is really channeling that desire to build and that desire to create, so that I'm creating in a more focused way, in a deeper way, instead of so broadly. Because for years, I just was creating things, but not really seeing them through and finishing them. And Terri, you asked me to talk about how we're thinking about product extensions, but I am reaching a point in my business where I'm hitting capacity of my time. I can only trade so much time, and I do all of my work as one-on-one. And so we're looking at how can we shift that a little bit with either an online product or a hybrid product where we're doing a little bit of my time and maybe a little bit more video kind of training material. Also looking at, whether it be like a book or a product that people can purchase that doesn't require my time. And potentially the hybrid could also be like a group program with some training material, with a little bit of me, but a little less of me, so that I can still scale, still have the impact I want, and still have the lifestyle that I'm committed to.
Yeah, dead on. And I know a lot of the builders can really relate to that. And part of the challenge, and I know we talked about this, is you really have to get that mastery of differentiation and demand down first before you can really do those product extensions, because they need to be a logical extension, not so much of your product, but of the problem that you solve from the buyer's perspective. And this is the mistake that people make when they do product extensions, like, oh, I'll just create like a learning management system and put some of my content in there. And they're thinking, I'll just take what I do in this format and I'll put it in that format, and boom, particularly builders, boom, I'll have people will buy my courses. It doesn't work that way. You've really got to look at your product extensions from the buyer's perspective and say, all right, how do you solve their problem? And what is another format that we can do, which is the key to differentiation? What's another format for that? So it's one of the reasons why with builders, it's a little hard sometimes not to just jump to the product extensions. You really have to go through the mastery of differentiation and demand. So talk to us a little bit about that, Carla, how you went through those two pathways, and now we're able to see what your buyer wants, your speaking is different, all of that. Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that's been probably the most impactful piece. You know, I think I used to always think of differentiation like I had to differentiate myself, like how I do things differently or how I serve clients differently. And what Terri flipped that all upside down to say, no, it's really about differentiating yourself in a way that matters to your buyer. And so what are they looking for? What's important to them? What do they value? And then bringing out, you know, from yourself and your purpose and your gifts and your service, those very things that align with what they're looking for. And honestly, it's been a game changer for me. And just in the last month, you know, I've had a couple speaking events where Terri's really helped me sort of hone my message and really speak my story. Where I think I used to want to speak about benefits. Now I'm just really sharing my story and where I have struggled, because where I have struggled is where the solutions and the changes have come from. And that's where I help people today. So speaking to that, like it just happened this last week, I just shared my story and got a text afterward from somebody listening saying, you're speaking my reality. I want to know more about your services and can we have a call? And so there's something that's really authentic that's happening. It feels like there's no selling involved. It's really just sharing in a way that really matters to people. And they're naturally, if that's something they want, they're naturally attracted to that.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job executing the differentiation strategy. I want to thank all of our guests today, and they'll, if you guys can just hang on for just a minute, I'm just going to share just a little bit about ShiftCo. I'll stop the recording and then we'll take any questions. There's three things people would consistently say. One, your business will grow using the platform. And you can read the testimonies for that. Second, it's an amazing group of leaders. I know the three that are speaking here today work with me, but they also work with other mentors and coaches as well. And the coaches really know their craft, whether it's Kevin on differentiation or Michelle on demand generation or Trisha on formation. They really know their craft, and it's an amazing community. And then the last thing is that we really do work together. We grow together, we work together. It's phenomenal. There's just a ton of built-in collaboration. And how it works, the kind of the code that we cracked using the Conscious Business Growth Platform is everybody's assigned a mentor, and the mentors help you figure out which pathway is the best path to you to get to from point A to point B, because we want everybody moving through those business phases. We want all of our members at least in the shape phase. So the mentor is the one that helps them do that. So, and the mentor that is assigned to you has grown their business using ShiftCo, so it's not theory to them. Then you get the core learning path. Stephen Dinaco leads the master teacher program, and he's the one who enrolls the master teachers, and then their content goes on the platform. And then everybody is assigned two coaches. You have a phase coach, which for the most part is me helping people navigate the phases. And then you've got pathway coaches that help you on the specific pathways. And then the community is just amazing. We also integrate business training with leadership training and personal training, which is also very unique. We don't separate that out. There's collabs. There's a confidence collab that's kicking off next week. There's wellness collab. So we embed that into the program. And then there's also this beautiful platform called Shift Connect that everything is based on. So that's how we interact with each other. That's how we get our lessons. It's how we sign up for things, is through that platform. And if you're interested in joining, if you're in Launch and Shape, you're in what we call MAP A, and that's $195 a month. There's no long-term commitment. It includes the coaching, the training, the mentoring, everything. There's no extra costs. If you're in Build and Evolve, that's MAP B, and that's $225 a month. The difference is that you get more one-on-one coaching and build, and then grow and scale is more consultants that you're working with that are helping you with exit strategies, how to scale to new markets, how to put new products in place. And so that is $325 a month. So that's ShiftCo. I want to stop the recording here and see